can I, as very non-technical as people around the table can testify, could I build like a small MVP using this tool? So the title of this video was AI will replace the technical co-founder. And this one got 5% dislikes. So people were not happy, which is fine.
Yeah, I mean, I love watching your videos, Heine, but this was a bit like watching an episode of The Office where it just, you enjoy watching it, but because it's so painful to watch.
Hey everyone, this is Heini Zachariassen here, and welcome to Founders Weekly, where we tell startup stories you can learn from. Today, we're going to talk about a controversial subject. Will AI replace the technical co-founder? I've brought on the heavy hitters here today, as we have two co-hosts and no guest. We have both Theis and Hassan on, and most of you listeners will know them already. They are both founders. Welcome, Theis and Hassan.
Thanks, Heine.
So before we get really into this, what are your initial feelings about sort of either being replaced or the technical co-founder being replaced? I know, Hassan, you had some pretty controversial statements about this earlier when we had coffee one day. But who wants to start?
I'll keep the controversy for later. Maybe Theis, start it. Start us off positively, maybe.
Well, I think there's a lot of questions here, right? And obviously a lot of skepticism. Around, can you really replace an entire person and such a cornerstone of any technical startup? This is a quite controversial topic, but I think wherever this podcast lands, I think we all need to keep in mind that AI now is as bad as it's going to get, right? It's only going to get better from now on. So wherever it is now, we can talk about that, but let's just remind ourselves that it is only going to progress from here.
I agree. I think that's my biggest sentiment is wherever we're at now, it's just, we're going to be miles ahead in the future. And the other aspect is there's also so many different parts of this, right? It's not just the coding, it's the team building and the management. Is it also going to replace that part of it? Is it going to replace the entire team, like Theis said? Do we even need any form of team members? What about people that are non-technical? There's still a lot of even non-technical stuff that a technical CTO is actually in charge of. So I think there's a lot to this question. So it's going to be fun kind of dissecting it today.
Let me sort of be a little bit clear, because when I said this to Hassan a few weeks ago, I said I tried this tool. I think you could replace the technical co-founder. He got really mad right away and said, I think it's going to replace the business co-founder. So that's what he said back then. He's walking backwards at this point.
I'm just keeping the drama for later.
Yeah, okay. We'll get deeper into this. Let's do some storytelling first. A couple of weeks ago, I came across a tool called Replit. They claim to have a full stack AI developer, a tool that just doesn't just build a small part of something, but builds the full software, all dependency, all the stuff you have to deal with when building a piece of software. All you have to do is chat with it, just like a ChatGPT. Pretty cool. So I thought, okay, can I, as very non-technical as people around the table can testify, could I build a small MVP using this tool? So if you want to know how that went, you're going to have to watch the video on Raw Startup. I will place a link, and there will be spoilers in here. But that's what we're going to talk about today, because this tool really claims that you can go all the way. So the title of this video was AI will replace the technical co-founder. And surprisingly, with the audience I have, people that started reacting a little bit to that. So there was a little bit of controversy. But let's talk about the video first. What did you guys think about the video? You can do spoilers. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I love watching your videos, Heine, but this was a bit like watching an episode of The Office where it just, you enjoy watching it, but because it's so painful to watch. It was.
I don't mind that. That's okay.
It was painful. It was painful, not because of you, but because of the AI.
It was a little. It was also embarrassing, I'm sure.
No. I think you did a decent job of just going back and forth. I think you were very reasonable with it. The funniest part to me were the cuts. And those cuts between, what happened and what didn't happen was there was a lot of pain. Whatever we just cut through, there was so much back and forth with this AI. And that's also the truth, even in development. There will be pain before you get to the solution. But this one was 100%. Just, when it kept going back on you, oh my goodness. Yeah. That's just...
Yeah, exactly. That is annoying. I mean, people even don't do that. But that was a little bit rough, I will say. So you got to watch the video. But But we did get some reaction, though. I will say that. So usually when I do a video on YouTube, I get like 0 to 1% dislikes on the video because you can click like or dislike, not public anymore. But this one got 5% dislikes. So people were not happy, which is fine. And then I want to read one specific comment here. And this guy says, CTO will not be replaced by AI. You do not understand this. AI is just an assistant. I have no respect for you anymore. You are wind in the forest. Okay, pretty harsh, huh?
I don't know. I think it's poetic, Heini. You mean you're a wind in the forest?
Yeah, it is.
I think it is too.
Exactly. Maybe it's an improvement.
Unless he's talking about farts or something. But I think, you being a wind in the forest, I think it's a very poetic backlash you got there going on YouTube.
Also, that viewer, the name of that viewer is just a viewer.
Oh yeah.
You know,
that is true.
I think it's interesting with the dislikes. Like if they came because people think that you took the position that they are going to be replaced by AI, like they can't have watched too much of the video, because watching the video, exactly, it's clear that we are very far from that happening, at least with this tool.
Yeah. I think that's what I want to talk about first here is, do you think the video represented where we are now? We're going to talk like a lot about that in a second, but we're not quite there yet, at least, right?
I don't think we're quite there yet. I also don't think the video fully represents where we're at now. As in, there are some really amazing foundational models that are coming out now. The problem is that the point of the video was, can it fully replace with someone that's like completely non-technical being able to go in? The thing is, right now, there are some much better tools than Replit that are out there that will get you, instead of like Replit getting you, maybe in your video 70% of the way, it didn't even get you 90%, I would say. The others will get you like 98% of the way. You still need that 2%, and it's extremely important because it just won't work. But there are tools that will get you there right now. Like there's some amazing stuff being built all over.
Yeah. So you could say the tool that gets you 98%, they don't have the user friendliness, and then so they probably require a little bit more, and the 2%, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be looking at code. There isn't really like that much of initial, like immediate feedback. It's showing you things immediately, deploying things immediately. Like all of that stuff is not there. Can it be built? Probably, but also just the way these tools work and having worked with them, it's geared towards developers right now.
Yeah.
And I will also say, Heine, with Replit, if people don't know it, and I guess most don't, but it's it's basically a chat interface, right? You basically tell it what you want, you describe it, and then it'll build it, and then you can give it feedback also through chat. And one thing one thing is that the tool is definitely not there yet, but also in your video in this example, we should keep in mind that you have 20 plus years experience with building technical products. And I know we label you as non-technical, but watching the video, it's very clear that you have a lot of experience in how do you talk to developers? How do you give feedback? Because you could see that, like you would describe things point by point, for example. Oh, this is wrong. New point, this is wrong. You would also describe things that worked, right? This is the way I want. This is the way I want. This is the way I want. This is not. And it just leaves like simple communication a toolbox that you have in terms of how do I communicate to a developer what I want and what I don't want. It was very clear from the video that you have that toolbox. And so there are varied levels of the non-technical founder, right?
Sure.
And clearly this tool today requires someone who knows how to interact with the developer. And that's a huge skill to have.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yes, I agree. There's from that point of view, let's say product managers, I have certain ways of saying things and so on. So it might be even further away from someone who has never built a software product before. Totally. One comment we got from someone else was that what worked really well for them was starting with a template. So that might be a sort of a shortcut to this. Hey, find a template or product that's close by, and then chat your way from that. That could work, right?
Absolutely. That is actually the initial point of Replit. Like the whole point of Replit is I'm going to send you a Replit, which is a kind of boxed, containerized kind of thing of like this piece of code works. For example, people would say, oh, you're trying to automate a mailing list. Here's a Replit of it, right? So now you can kind of take something that works and then potentially AI and iterate your way through it to make it change to whatever you need it to do. I'd like for you to try to do actually a video on that. Can you like iterate
maybe
through
I
something?
should.
I think that would be very interesting.
Yeah, totally.
But still, it's not gonna, because we're talking technical co-founder. So you're mostly starting something from scratch, right? Like,
yeah, this is the problem, Theis. Remember we talked last week about why is it so hard to find product market fit, right? It's probably because you're building something that nobody has built before, and therefore the template becomes a little bit tricky, right?
Yes, and also today's concepts, like if you're building anything technical, like it is very few businesses where you can create a good business out of purely ones and zeros, right? It's not.
Mhm.
It's not. Most apps today or websites or services, they somehow link like very different data streams, or they interact with the real world, right? You can't, like, Uber is not just an app. It has nothing if it doesn't have drivers and riders. Same thing with Vivino. It's not anything if there's not data behind it. If there's not, like, so just building the kind of the that, not just the interface, but like even the app, it's not really the main challenge today. And the other thing with a technical co-founder is also there are so many choices to make around what stack are you using, right? What are the technologies that we choose to build this thing on? So there's a whole step there that you also need to care about, which I think also AI is quite far away from dealing with.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into where we are now. How close are we to replacing this? And what is the current technology? And how, can AI change how we build startups? First, let's go on a short break. We are back. So we covered the video now. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about where we are now and the final segment, where we're going into the future, because I know especially Hassan has some very ambitious goals for the future when it comes to AI. So by then we'll all be replaced, I guess, but we'll get there. So if we look at how AI helps us now, let's say they're like in building a software tool, like 3 levels. It could be like a developer tool that helps you code. It could be a tool that builds part of your application, or it could be full stack. Obviously, Replit was supposed to be full stack, but I'd love to talk through all of these 3. So as a developer tool, how far are we with that? I mean, Microsoft's been doing this for a long time with the Copilot and so on. Do you want to start with that, Hassan?
Yeah. I mean, we have plenty. I think right now the big kind of code editor, let's just say, out there is called Cursor. And Cursor, I think I've been using Cursor for a very long time. I think mentioned it on the podcast like quite a while ago, and then somehow I think a couple of months ago it just exploded. People are using it everywhere. It basically does 2 things. So there's a code editing part. an autocomplete part where it autocompletes your code, but then there's a composer part where basically you go in there and you explain to it the problem, and then it goes and it creates a bunch of files, and you also have the option of adding stuff you already have. So this is important for the context part, for example, that was missing from the example that you were building, right? Again, this still needs a developer to understand like what the heck is going on. But in the development world right now, like that's kind of like number 1. But there are some other developer tools with a ton of money being poured into them right now as well. So
yeah, exactly. I wanted to mention Poolside, which announced yesterday that they had raised $500 million. Poolside, obviously, a good friend of ours is on there. Paul St. John is the chief revenue officer there. Congrats to him and the team. But they basically raised $500 million just now to build such a tool. For me, as an outsider, it looks like a pretty crowded area, right? Microsoft's been doing that for years. What do you know anything about this Poolside product?
I mean, essentially what they're doing is they are building a new foundational model. I think a lot of these companies are like, we're essentially going to just train a single model on a shit ton of code, and good code, supposedly. Again, like a lot of these things, I am still skeptical, because what models like GPT are doing are a little bit different. So I'll actually explain it in a different way, because there's another player in the game here that's very interesting, and it's called V0 from Vercel. What they're doing is they're not building a foundational model. They're grabbing some really strong models like GPT-4, like Claude, etc., and then they're giving them access in their context to a whole lot of documentation and a whole lot of what they consider really, really good code bases, and going like, hey, this is how you do things the right way. And the things people are actually building with V0 are insane. Like they're building entire games, and it's getting like very, very far. Like people are building massive products in just like 10 minutes and stuff like that.
But this is a code assistant. Is this something? Could I build that, or could I not?
Yes and no, because it does auto deploy. Because their whole thing, Vercel, is they have like deployment infrastructure, but also the ultimate I guess, export of that program is a whole bunch of code, which is kind of what you want. I mean, you do want to own that, right? But I'm just not sure you're going to know what to do with that code unless it gives it to you, right?
No.
So.
Okay. So the pool side thing is a philosophy thing. They want to build their own foundational model, and there's a lot of GitHub people. I'm not sure. I don't think they have access to GitHub code, but they know how code works, I guess, right?
There's one aspect that I forgot to mention, just to be fair, because it's, yes, what they do is they have their foundational model and then they fine tune it on whatever you have now. So this is, again, a lot less starting from scratch, a lot more. I'm Marriott and I have a giant code base, right? I'm going to grab this foundational model and then I'm going to learn everything that's going on in this already code base thing. And now suddenly I've just hired 1,000 software engineers that know everything about my code base and that know the core of what makes a good software developer. And then I can start prompting it. So that's like the cool thing about it, I guess. But again, it's not made from scratch, at least from what I understand.
Okay, got it. Okay. So if you look at the next thing here, and this was a little bit technical, is we're getting closer to the non-technical, is AI building parts of a piece of software, right? And I've seen some of those in action, and I'm pretty sure this was Flutter Flow, which was, as an example, helped you build the front end. Obviously, they've seen a lot of front ends. That's what they do. But it was not good. Let's put it that way. It was not amazing at chatting with it and saying, build something like this. So what have you seen sort of building pieces of your software?
You want me to keep going on this one? So basically,
feel free to go. So yeah,
I think tooling is the big part here that I think a lot of companies are missing. So, you know, if I want to build something that's going to automate some mailing lists or going to automate posting on social media, or something that I wanted to filter through some stuff, and I don't know, essentially, instead of doing Zapier, which was our kind of no-code automation tool from, it's weird to say now, back in the day. Now you can just
several months ago.
Several months ago from back in the day. Now it's, let me just prompt this AI to create a bunch of Python scripts for me and a panel that goes with it that can just execute these Python scripts. That does simple things.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm going to push back on that, but people are going to hit me for this, but isn't that a lot of what a developer does, is connecting things that don't really work, meaning Zapier or whatever tools you use to. So you have a lot of things, you make sure all the things are there, and then you connect them and make sure they work. And then shouldn't an AI be able to do that?
Totally.
Or is that what you're saying? Yeah.
That is, and I think that's what you've experienced now. It did build, like, some parts of that were great. The map was pretty good, right? There was some filtering, there was a form box, there was some error reporting. It's just that it didn't work. But the parts were there. They just weren't connected that well, right?
No. So that is the challenge, is that to connect it? Because it feels like that. So building parts of it, maybe it's fine, building a form, maybe some front end, but putting it all together, that's the hard part, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to go ahead in our discussion. That is the hard part.
Yeah.
As a developer, I'm thinking, like, if that's the hard part, we're screwed. Like, that doesn't sound like too hard of a problem to solve for AI. So I don't think, like, I think it's more than that. There's a certain bird's eye view that's going on here that we're not quite there yet. You know? No. And again, like, it's one thing to build a concept, and it's another thing to build a full-blown product with all of its features and having the context to build on top of that and to iterate on that. That's what we're really far away from. Not like build me Mario Kart. I might be able to do it with some models right now, you know? But how good is it going to be? I don't know. Yeah, what do you say?
Yeah, no, I think we're back to where we started, which is that it's definitely possible, or it should be possible today, to kind of replicate some concepts that are out there, right? Like you say, like, can you build me a Mario Kart? Yeah, probably, right? Because we can train on that. The problems come in when it's a new thing that has never been done before. So your example in the video with a kebab review site, right? These are fairly known components of, like, okay,
Kebabs
we need a map. Kebabs are very well known, loved by all, and the whole, like, reviewing and a user level and logins and so on, right? These are all pretty known. The hard part comes when And it couldn't even do that. But then the further hard part comes when it's something that you haven't really seen before or thought about before. I personally think, like, if we go back a bit to the more startup situation, one thing that became very obvious in the video was kind of the limited bandwidth you had in kind of communicating with it, right? That when you do these texts, and I think there's a much more likely approach to this where we take the tools, and there is stuff out there that's trying to do this already, but like you take tools that we have today for non-technical people, like a Figma or a Sketch, where you can focus on the user experience of how you want it, right? And then you can use the AI to not just make the clickable prototypes you have today, but really try to connect that with the data layer underneath. So you can get to maybe not an MVP, but you can get to a really convincing prototype. To be honest, this is often one of the reasons why non-technical people struggle with getting started with their tech startup is that they have a challenge attracting the technical co-founder, right? And the further they can get in presenting their vision, the stronger they are. Right. This also goes towards investment and to getting other employees and anyone to get anyone excited about your startup. So if AI can help you just get some steps further down that line of creating a really convincing prototype that also looks great because you actually spent your non-technical time on the interface and on the design and so on. But now it actually somewhat works, like it's connected to a data layer, it's connected to a proper map. You can actually play around with it. It has some exception cases and so on, right? This will just make the whole communication part of trying to get your startup from zero to something to a lot easier. So I think I'm skeptical on the MVP part for the near future or even midterm future, but getting some way more convincing prototypes that you can interact with, I think is more likely.
Yeah. So I want to jump a little bit here before we get back to the MVP in a second, because this is another story that came out just now. And it's about Klarna. They made the bold decision to drop Salesforce and Workday, opting to replace these platforms for its own AI-based solution. This transition is a part of a larger strategy by Klarna to streamline its tech stack, reduce reliance on third-party providers, and significantly cut operational costs. So they're taking huge platforms like Salesforce and Workday. Said, we're not going to do this. We're just going to build it ourselves because AI is so good now. I was surprised by this. Are we there now? What's happening?
Oof. I mean, the word AI-based solutions is so loaded.
Yeah, who knows what it means, huh?
What part is AI-based? Are your developers using Copilot to build
is
like
that
a
it?
Salesforce
Every developer
clone?
does that.
Do you have a bunch of really, really smart prompting scripts that you're using that just go in and go through the entire, sale that just happened and does everything that needs to happen? Essentially, like replicates some kind of customer service agent that does all the stuff that the code used to do. This is where I still don't know what they did. But if they're doing it, we have to believe them. They are doing it. They're dropping Salesforce. They are dropping Workday. And you have to think like, what are they dropping? So what do these companies help us with? And what do I need to do to replace it? Right?
What is it, Theis?
I don't know enough about Klarna in this one. I did see reactions from like Mark Benioff, the CEO founder of Salesforce, on this news, where of course he's highly skeptical of this. But clearly, what Klarna is doing is they're saying we have all this data and we don't need a third-party layer on top to interpret the data. We have our own source of truth. We have all the first level data ourselves, and we can through our AI, we can create better insights and better internal tools than Salesforce can do. And there's probably also a cost perspective in that. So I mean, I imagine that's what they're doing. Obviously, Salesforce and Mark Benioff were very, very skeptical about this.
I'm also gonna be also skeptical of it, because it sounds to me like when someone drops their accountant, because now like they're gonna use like in Denmark we have this product called Economic, which is an impossible product to use. If you're out there and you're a startup and you're like really good at UX, build a QuickBooks in Denmark and you will make a killing, because there
are 15 companies that do it already.
I know. I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to be really angry at them. It's just not at QuickBooks level. Let's just put it at that. No. QuickBooks makes it almost impossibly easy to be. Anyways, we're not going to go into that. But the point is, people like drop their accountant and then just like, oh, I can do all of this stuff. How hard can this shit be? But like, there's all these kind of low hanging fruits that like kind of a lot of the software has been doing in the background that you haven't even thought about, that I think Klarna's probably going to struggle with a little bit moving forward. I'm not saying it's not solvable, but the word bold move is definitely correct here, I would say.
So here's one theory of what could have happened here, right? So an internal decision was made to dump Salesforce and Workday and just build ourselves. We have the size at Klarna as we're big enough to build this ourselves. And then at some strategy meeting, some PR guy said, hey, if we put AI on top of this and then announce it, it's a big story. And then that's it, right?
Damn, that very well could be. That very well could be. Again, I'm always, I don't know, I guess Klarna is big enough to do this, maybe. But yeah, like I always work, I'm a very like focus on what you do really, really good, really, really well or whatever, right? Like just do that really, really well. And for them now to be building a Salesforce and a Workday, I'm not sure if that's what they hired their developers to do.
No, that's true. That's true.
You know?
Okay, so before we get to the MVP, I have one thing I want to touch on, and that's with this AI, with these tools, full stack or not quite full stack yet. How is the role of or the split between product management and engineering? Is that going to change in a startup? And that's like we're talking all the way down to the founder, like the first and so on. But what about day to day? Is product management going to be stronger and build more, and then it goes to engineering? Any thoughts on that?
Well, as I see it, the main contribution of AI now and in the near future is to the developer. Right? We will have better, more efficient developers. We will have an upskilling of developers. It's going to be easier for a low-level developer to become mid-level. It's going to be easier for a mid-level to be high-level. And that for the organization, for the company, that translates into more resources. You're able to do more with the same amount of people hired. So that's for me, like that's the first major impact. And that will empower product management to be much more efficient, because maybe now you can try out more things than you used to do. Maybe you can do more parallel tracks than you used to do. I'm not sure how much it's going to help product managers. Obviously you will have AI tools helping with analysis, data crunching. There's a lot of challenges in product management, which is about making sense of all the flood streams of data that you have coming in, right? What does this even mean? And that's one place where we know that AI can definitely make a difference. So I think on the analysis part, it can make a difference. It can make, for product management, it can make a difference in terms of how you think about your resources, the how you think about the engineering department, that you have more power available to you.
Hassan?
Yeah, I fully agree. I think one thing I'll add is just one thing really good product managers do is they simplify complexity, right? Like they take a very, very complex problem, very big vision, and they like kind of cut it down into small pieces, and then they assign it to different developers. I will argue here against the product managers that now I'm not sure you really need to do that. I think like one developer can now take on very, very complex tasks with the help of AI and how well AI is becoming. And even the AI itself, the best thing it can do right now, still, it's even better than code, is communicate, break things down, reason, take a document, split it into different things, create Jira stories out of an epic. It's so good at this stuff. So I think it's a two-edged sword, and everyone should be
I hear what you're saying. Hassan. I think what that will do is the same thing that AI has done then for developers. It's going to make the product managers much better, right?
Yes.
And that's also where I think that's where we've all experienced the power of AI. If we use the tools available as kind of our overpowered assistants, right?
Yes.
They are AI tools today are great, like a baseline tool today, like ChatGPT, is great at just helping you structure your thoughts, right? It's great at you can spitball with it. You can kind of play mental ping pong with it and test out ideas and give me 10 arguments against this, right? Why is replacing the technical co-founder with AI a bad idea? Why is it a good idea? It'll give you like great arguments. And product managers can use the AI tools for this as well. Right? They can use it to split out. the epic into smaller stories. And then they can apply their very well-trained human product management skills to like look at that and say, yeah, but actually there you got it wrong. And oh, that's actually great. That just saved me 4 hours of work. And now I can suddenly manage 5 teams instead of 2.
Yeah,
I think what you're both saying is just the muscle just becomes bigger, right? It's just you can just do, you have more resources, you can just do a lot more with AI on both sides of those.
Yeah.
So
but if I were to be really annoying and ask you a question and say, is the AI likely more to replace the developer or the product manager? Which would you choose?
I don't know. I think, again, my main analysis is that this just enables you to do more. If the company then decides that actually we don't need to do more, so now we're going to cut the work staff, right, the workforce by 5, because now they're just so much more efficient and we get the work we need done. We get away with that. So we actually just let people go. And in that sense, they've been replaced. That's one way to go. A lot of other companies will just look at it as like, oh, wow, now we can do 5 times more. So let's do that. And that's really up to company strategy and the position of the company and whatever market they're in. Yeah, so I think it's going to make the individuals much more efficient. And it's going to, let's say that you can choose to have whatever it is, 3 developers instead of 10. I really think it's very, very hard to go from 3 developers to 0 developers. And it's very hard.
Big difference.
So like the whole like replacing, I think is I'm really struggling with that, at least where these tools are now. I have to be very optimistic, kind of forecasting that out and say, yeah, they're going to replace. I think they're gonna diminish the need for how many of them you need.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So it's 10xing your teams and 100xing them, really.
Yeah.
Versus replacing.
Yeah. Yes.
Another way to answer that question, Hassan, is saying who does it replace? One of those two is it depends on who you are. So if you're a product manager, it will replace the engineer, just a bad engineer. If you're an engineer, it will replace the product manager, just a bad product manager, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's like, you could argue we're almost there. At least that's going to happen in the next few years, that if you're an engineer, you can at least get a bad product manager from AI, and the other way around. The other way.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, I want to talk about the MVP. So we've touched on it already. The theory is here: can you build an MVP if you're non-technical? I think we've sort of concluded already that it's going to be a little bit hard. Maybe we tone it down a little bit and say, could you build a decent prototype? And there are 2 ways of looking at this, right? We just said that the muscle just became much bigger, so we're raising the bar for the prototype, or raising the bar for the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could have a situation where you just see a lot of people calling clickable things demos, calling them prototypes, MVPs, when they're not. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's a third way as well, which is just that you, let's say you're an individual founder and you have some bag of money, right? And it might be very small, and you will try to get as far as you can. Now, what AI enables you is to get way further down the road than you could before, right? So if you have this idea and you were told that actually this is going to take us 6 months to build the MVP and to put these things together, well, then maybe in a world where AI really makes the developers way more efficient, maybe you can do it with a 1-month salary instead of a 6-month salary, right? So suddenly your bag of money that you have with you, however big or small it is, just enables you to get way further down the road. And again, not necessarily by you sitting there chatting yourself with an AI coder, but by just the fact that the people you're working with are just so much more efficient. So I think that can be a major change to how startups work. And like you're probably right that then that will also raise the bar. Like it's no longer enough to just, it's not enough today to come with a pitch deck, right? You also need to have a prototype. And now, you raise the bar further and further of like, what do we expect from an early stage company that that we're looking at?
Yeah. One thing I'll add to that, that I think a lot of like founders can take advantage of is testing their hypothesis. Like people never spend enough time on that, like building an actual proof of concept, testing things. I'm trying to solve a problem. Does this problem actually exist? Do people actually want this kind of solution? So being able to build some kind of proof of concept and putting it in the hands of your potential market and going like, would you pay for this? Is this good? Yeah. I mean, how much of that is it going to allow us to do? How many iterations of that is it going to allow us to do? Maybe I can build 50 different proof of concepts and go like, oh yeah, this is the thing that passes. I wasn't able to do
100%.
that
No.
with many developers, let alone on my own. But I think with this, you totally can. And you don't need to go that far. It doesn't even have to work. It just needs to be like...
In that sense, you're raising the bar, right? Or increasing the hit ratio, right? We usually say that, hey, when you do a startup, like 18 months to build something. I mean, the question is, do we stay with the 18 months and build a much better product? Or do we say, no, now it's 6 months, guys?
Yeah, exactly. I think this is my main point, right? That you can also, you can just assign you've just been given much more power, and you can put those PowerPoints on whatever bar you want, right? Do you want to make it faster? Do you want to make it better? Do you want to make more of it? Do you want to test out 10 ideas instead of one? Like whatever you think is going to give you the most value, you can use that increased power because you have just become much more powerful with the AI around you.
And the power is there. Like let's be honest. Like one thing, there's a lot of anxiety going around right now, and founders, developers, and it's basically looking at other people like, oh shit, like they're gonna hear us now and go like, wow, this stuff exists. Other people are doing it. I mean, you can do it too. So I think it's very important for founders to kind of not play victim right now and say like, oh, there's these things that can do stuff, and actually feel empowered and parent themselves. Like I parent myself all the time and go like, okay, I need to get my shit together and learn about this stuff, or I will fall behind. So it is important to go out there and see these tools and test them and take advantage, because they're there for you in the end.
Yeah. And I think there is a lot of bias that you have to be aware of within yourself. Like you have that famous saying of like, it's what is it? It's very hard to understand something when your salary depends on you not understanding it. And so, when people look at what can AI do, and we talk, oh, it's going to replace product managers, oh, it's going to replace developers, this is going to replace technical found, whatever. Like it's very hard to look at that objectively when you are one of those parts. And I think that makes some people miss out on a wonderful thing that's happening right now, which is a ton of innovation and a ton of help for whatever you're doing that is just out there right now.
When your title is in front of your title is replaced, then you have a hard time understanding. That's what you're saying. and like what we always say is like, you're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by a person with AI. So you'd rather be that person with AI, right? And when it comes to developers, Hassan, I would say, I would assume that most developers today use all these tools full on, right?
If you're not doing it, this is your call to do it. I mean, it's sure. I'm not sure what the numbers are, but I assume so. Yeah.
I don't think so. Okay, we are going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to look at the future of this. So we've talked about where we are now. We keep saying, hey, something's coming, and maybe it is as bad as it ever gets. But what is the future, and when is it there? We'll be right back. Okay, we are back. So let's talk about where we're going. What will the future bring for AI and the founders? So the question here, I'm going to go straight to you, Hassan, here. So where are we going long term? And I think you might have like a bigger vision here. So I want to hear what that is.
We are reaching a form of intelligence, and we're seeing it in some of the tools already now, that's so powerful, in which really like all of us can build the software, let's just call it, or the tools we need in our everyday life. And they are very like tailored and personalized for us. Like for me, the big word is generative AI, but people have been using that really for images and videos and all kinds of fucking amazing stuff, right? But and we talked about this, Heini, I think like 6 months ago in one of the very, very early episodes, where we talked about Vercel and how they were creating. And so you would prompt it, I want to buy stocks in whatever, and it would create a stock buying app for you just then and there. Like that's what it would reply with. And it would create something that would just do this one little thing for you and move on, right? And then you have the army of agents that people keep talking about. So essentially, you sit there and you talk to your butlers, and they're going to go around doing all this stuff for you, including potentially doing your job with people not even knowing it's not you doing it. I think these things are closer than we think they are. I know they seem far, but I don't think they're as far as we really think they are. And I'm talking just out of experience, honestly, especially lately, the stuff I've been able to get out of some of these like newer models, I'm just sitting there like, shit, This is scaringly good, and I don't think we should be scared about it, right? But one thing we also talked about earlier in this call is who's it going to replace? And I had the opposite view of like, I think it's going to replace like the business co-founder because now like the technical co-founder can stitch things together, and this AI can actually manage people. It can talk to people really well. It can understand when they're feeling down, when they're feeling up. It can listen to their voice. It can send them pictures of their dogs when they're feeling, like what an amazing CEO. How thoughtful.
But does that mean it's the end of, shall we say, standardized software? Is that what you're saying?
I think like big software companies, I think they're already ending. I'm not sure Salesforce needs to have freaking 100,000 people. Why should they? No. That is the truth. We saw it on Twitter. No one wanted to believe it, and that's before AI. I'm sure it's even going to get like leaner.
Well, Salesforce has 100,000 people selling their software. That's what they do.
I'm sure with the latest, what is it? OpenAI yesterday released their real-time API, which, by the way, they did not build, which is kind of weird because like there's another company that does their voice, but they kind of white label it, which is weird. Okay. But anyways, that's a whole nother thing. But you can now do like real-time speech to speech, essentially doing prompting with OpenAI as an API. What this allows you to do is extremely, extremely, extremely good customer support, sales calls, etc. And we saw like their voices and their sound that you can barely tell that it's human or not or whatever.
I mean, when you get Hassan talk about AI, he doesn't stop and also can, talk for a long time. But also about all kinds of. So let's see if we can get back on the founder and replacing the founder, not the entire world. But I think it is relevant that if standardized software disappears, like where's the startup at and so on, right? But if we look a little, not as long down the line, if you say, this is going to be possible, then what I did in the video, I mean, of course it's going to be able to do that. I mean, it's just, I'm just going to go for a walk and have some screen in front of me and just chat with it until it's built what I want it to build, right?
Exactly. Like, why not have a robot at home and whatever you ask it to do, it'll just do it. It's not going to open some app to do it for you. It's just going to build that app and do it for you. And again, it's not even an app. It's just, that is the app. That is the new interface. There is no other interfaces. Again, it's very, I don't know if futuristic is the right word, but it's weird.
Yeah. It is. So how far is that out? Like, because we need to make some money before that happens, because we're not going to make any money after that happens. So how far is that out?
Really hard to tell, to be honest. I don't know. If I were to just throw a number out there, I'm going to say like 10 years.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I believe that. So if you're building a business, make sure you have some data, because software is going to be worthless.
Data is definitely the game. But also, I think right now, again, is an amazing time to take advantage of AI and all of this and actually like build really great applications of it. There's still tons of ideas out there and tons of things that are going to last even probably farther than the 10 years. In 10 years is probably when it's
Theis just stunned at this point.
I'm so excited to hear it.
Oh, I'm just listening to the wind in the forest by now.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I think one thing we need to remember with these timelines is also that it takes a long time for technology to be adopted, even these days.
Yes.
And so
like really adopted.
Yeah, like really adopted in a broad scale, right? And even though it does pick up faster and faster, there's still going to be a world for a very, very long time where the world that Hassan is talking about is accessible to a certain number of people, and it's understood by an even smaller number of people and used by an even smaller fraction of those. The future is unevenly distributed. And so it's whatever the timeline is, there's still going to be a lot of people out there who will not be using it, and where there are also all kinds of other business opportunities in that kind of market.
100%. Yeah, and we'll know them when we see them. Yeah.
What happens when AI starts training AI and making AI better, right? And by the way, that is one of the core aspects of Ilya's new company. Safe superintelligence. His whole thing
sounds really safe.
Sounds pretty safe. But really, like, what happens there? Like, how fast is that going to move?
I don't know. I think they should read up on like European royal genetics and how that worked out for all this. inbreeding is not a good idea. I look forward to all this synthetic data just making the models worse and
Inbred
worse.
AI. That's actually
that's my standard.
very true.
Okay, so I'm not sure how to wrap this up, honestly. But anyway, many years ahead, there will be no software. It will just be one interface we talk to. But until then, there's going to be a lot of opportunities, and we're going to embrace all of it, definitely. There are just a lot of opportunities. Just, again, use the AI. So one question we do every week is, what are you obsessed with right now? And who wants to start with that?
I think Hassan should go first.
Yeah, it's probably something AI.
Sure, it's not. I mean, I'm not gonna hide. Like right now, I'm just honestly, I'm obsessed with the war that's going on right now. That's just the full honest truth, and I want it to absolutely stop. It's literally hitting home pretty hard as of recent, and I hope for peace. And I've been focused on that and trying to help people that are in it and try to get out of it. So
yeah.
I hear you.
I hear you. It's horrible. Hope for peace as soon as
Sorry,
possible.
I didn't mean the negative thing, but
no, but it
it's
is real.
It's
real.
It's
it's horrible.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Hassan. Our thoughts go to everyone who's affected by that, in also obviously in Ukraine, all over the world. But this has been it's close to your homes, Hassan. So horrible.
Yeah.
So Theis, that's going to be a little bit difficult to get after that. Maybe we should just end it. Go ahead, Theis.
Well, yeah, sure. Well, so I'm going to switch back to AI then. I'm quite obsessed by some Gen AI these days, and it's very specific. Like from the very beginning of Gen AI, when it kind of came out, and I saw the ChatGPT models and so on. For me, it was very obvious that this is going to be amazing for game development. Because one of the things with Gen AI in like creative endeavors is it doesn't actually have to be right; it just has to look right. and Gen AI is great at looking right. Whatever the facts are underneath it, it's great at being very convincing in whatever it generates. And so for me, and one thing I've always been missing in games is this kind of the feeling of having a real world. And the thing about a real world is like it's quite dirty and it's quite random. And so like in any game where you walk down the street, it'll always just be too clean. It doesn't have all the cruft that you need. And there's no weird stuff going on, right? Because that's just too expensive to kind of to create. And it just seemed to me so obvious that Gen AI is going to be super amazing at doing this. And what makes me excited these days, and I'm sure you also know, Heini, because you're like me, you're also into flight simulators, is that they're going to be releasing the new version of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 in some weeks. And one of the things they've done is that they've used Gen AI in their world building, and it's just such an obvious use case of like, hey, you want to create the entire planet, and in the old version they did that by taking a satellite photo of a forest, and you would have these small squares, and they would put on this kind of 2D texture on it that looks like a forest. So when you fly above it, it looks like a forest. But when you got really close, it actually didn't look very convincing.
Did not, no.
Now they've used Gen AI to kind of say, okay, you say it's a forest? All right, let's just generate a forest with all kinds of super detailed objects. So now like the detail level is like they say it's 4,000 times higher. And they made this thing where you can actually jump out of the plane and walk around wherever you are on the planet.
What?
In a landscape that, and like I said, it's not going to be exactly my park around the corner, but it's going to look like a park. It's going to be like it's going to have all the stuff that makes it look like a forest or a beach or a park or whatever. And that's just an amazing way to use it, and I'm super excited to see that. And I think a lot of games could just benefit from this kind of approach to the world building. So that's I'm super excited about that.
Damn.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I've seen pictures, and I'm sure you've seen them too, Theis. It's like you cannot see now what is what. I mean, it's just really. They tried to take pictures at the same angle, and it's like, okay, I'm not sure what is what anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
That is amazing. That is amazing. I was also obsessed with simulators, especially growing up. I remember like being so proud when in Microsoft Simulator 2000 or whatever, like I did my PPL.
Oh,
And, like,
there you go.
ooh, you know, and I kept like every time I'm on a plane, I kept imagining, what if like something happens to the pilots and they come back? I'm just gonna take over the plane and land us to safety.
This is the dream of all flight simmers, Hassan. That's what we secretly dream of.
Yeah.
So obviously I have taken a PPL, so I got a little bit bored by simulators. But anyway, let's leave that.
Oh, all right.
So I think this is really cool, Theis, I must say. So for me, I am taking a plane to Singapore on Saturday, and we're going to have our official opening of our first ever Vivino flagship store. And I'm not going to lie, I am incredibly excited about that. I know you are too, Theis. But just seeing what we've built with a partner down there, I mean, it looks like the Apple shop for wine, Apple store for wine. I mean, it's just it's so incredibly well done with all the data, and people can just walk in. It's just a much better shopping experience that I've ever seen anywhere in the world. So excited about that.
Yeah, no, it is super, and it's so interesting how you can build something digitally and be super proud of it, which I'm sure you are super proud of, Heini, and so am I. There's just something about it being in the real physical world that just brings it to a different level in kind of when you look at it and
tangibility
you have inside. Yeah, it's like so tangible. Suddenly it feels real, which it is. Yeah. So it's super cool. Looking forward to seeing the pictures, Heini.
Yeah,
the selfies,
videos. all of it. Lots of selfies. I promise you. So excited about that. Cool. So we've come to the end of another episode of Founders Weekly. Thank you, Theis, and thank you, Hassan.
Thanks, Heini.
And a message here, I will actually be off from the podcast next week due to the travel just mentioned, so we'll be back on the 18th of October. Please make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a review and rating. It really helps. For those of you on YouTube, check out Raw Startup, a lot of videos about building a startup. Obviously, the video we talked about in this video. This has been Founders Weekly. Now stop listening, go build something.